Breaking, Trump fam's helicopter dies in air over DC. No coincidence, look what was found. News is just now emerging regarding a helicopter flying members of President Donald Trump's immediate family, which just narrowly escaped a fatal crash en route from Washington, D.C., to New York. Without warning, the engine died, forcing the skilled pilot to make an emergency landing seconds before it was too late. This terrifying incident could have ended far worse than it did, which may have been the plan based on what else was found. When you're as controversial of a leader as Trump is to the incessant left, nothing and nobody is off limits in bringing down our incredible president. This includes all members of his family who have been perpetually targeted in a series of attacks. However, after today's horrifying mid-air ordeal, it appears that sudden engine failure may not have been a coincidence, considering it was the second time it's happened to one of Trump's Sikorsky helicopters. Daily Mail reports. A helicopter heading for New York that was carrying Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner had to turn back to Washington, D.C. after suffering an engine failure. A report that was released on Sunday evening detailed how the chopper, one of the Trump Organization's Sikorsky helicopters, turned back to Ronald Reagan National Airport shortly after taking off on Thursday afternoon. President Trump's daughter and her husband, who also works as a senior advisor in the White House, ended up catching a commercial flight back to the city instead. Apart from the pilot, the only other person on board the aircraft was a member of their security detail. This incident was certainly frightening, and the family is likely still shaken after barely being able to walk away after landing. However, what's worse was that this wasn't the first potentially fatal in-flight issue that Trump helicopters have had. The last happened back in July and was quickly swept under the rug and never spoken of in mainstream media until now. The president's Sikorsky S-76B helicopter crashed in June near the Hudson River, and not a single word was released about this horrific accident until the following month in a report that went missing shortly after. The strange circumstance is certainly reason for a breaking report upon it falling out of the sky with passengers on board. There seems to be a reason why it's been kept completely quiet, and now we not only know why the summer crash happened but who was potentially involved. In July, Page 6 briefly reported on the first Trump Sikorsky crashes. One of President Trump's beloved personal helicopters was involved in an accident last month in Manhattan, but the details are being kept strictly under wraps, Page 6 has exclusively learned. On June 15, a Trump chopper was involved in a crunch in Manhattan when its tail rotor hit a fence upon landing at the West Side heliport alongside the Hudson River. Photos seen by Page 6 appear to show that the rotor was completely sheared off. Witnesses say damage to the aircraft was enough to completely ground it, and it had to be hauled away for repairs. It was initially suspected that Ivanka Trump and son-in-law Jared Kushner were on board that ill-fated flight, according to Daily Mail. However, it was later discovered to actually be Donald Trump Jr. and two Secret Service agents on that particular flight. But what helipad workers did immediately after the crash speaks volumes as to why the incident was kept so quiet. Immediately after escaping the aircraft, a crew was immediately there to haul the helicopter away, but first completely disguised the word Trump on the side of the aircraft. Page 6 immediately accused the action of being a vain move to protect the president and his family from the embarrassment. It turns out it was something far more that his detractors surely didn't want to admit. In the months since then, sources close to the crash investigation have suspected that these repeat alarming helicopter malfunctions have been hushed up to prevent exposing a potential terrorist plot. Radar Online explains. Government documents obtained exclusively by RadarOnline.com reveal Donald Trump Jr. survived the incident thanks to the heroic pilot and two Secret Service agents on board. The helicopter made a harrowing emergency landing on June 14, 2017, yet another chilling example of the first family under siege, and sources now believe the incident was intentionally kept quiet to deprive suspected saboteurs from publicizing their near victory. But Federal Aviation Administration records, revealed here for the first time, describe how a tail rotor on a Sikorsky helicopter owned by the Trump Organization suddenly flew off during a descent into NYC. The helicopter was set to land after making a 230-mile flight from Washington, D.C. Records show none of the passengers, Donald Jr., the agents and the pilot, suffered any injuries. But aviation experts told Radar the incident would have spelled certain death if the rotor had detached at a higher altitude. "It wouldn't surprise me that someone was trying to target the Trump family," said Bart Rossi, a renowned political psychologist. Meanwhile, a radar investigation has uncovered an alarming pattern of near misses involving helicopters and President Trump. The nightmare emergency landing in 2017 was eerily similar to a 1989 incident when a main rotor blade separated on a Trump Organization helicopter. The aircraft crashed into a wooded area in New Jersey, killing 2 pilots and 3 Trump executives on board. At the time, the future president acknowledged he would have been aboard had he not decided at the last minute not to fly. The National Transportation Safety Board blamed the manufacturer for a scratch on the rotor for the fatal crash. But former Bill Clinton henchman Larry Nichols said both snafus have a sinister whiff. "Guys who have enough money to pull off a presidential run are a threat to the establishment," he said. "And that same establishment will try to murder the outsider and their families wherever they can." While Trump owns these aircrafts, the first family flies on Marine One and Air Force One. This hasn't deterred the left from attacking his personal fleet still today, referring to the aircrafts as aging and an arrogant way to display his brand. The truth is, they don't seem to want to admit the incessant threat to his life and his family's lives because they are responsible for spreading hate that could be causing these potentially deadly attacks to happen.